I am Mureithi, 30 years of age, and I'm a consultant by profession, consultant corporate and personal development, and I love people. I would describe my parents as the typical African parent. My father, a disciplinarian. He was such a disciplinarian. He used to beat us in advance. And he's going up country, he orders us to lie down. We are thoroughly beaten. We ask, what have we done? He says nothing. But I know when I'm gone, you'll do things. So he was that kind of a dad, very focused on education. He, like any African parent, education is the key to success, so he was all out matters education. My mother, on the other hand, was the soft-spoken, the emotional one. I have never been beaten by my mother at any point in time as far as I can remember. So she was our go-to person when things are thick with Mzee. Mzee was the typical disciplinarian. Whenever you do something, your mother tells you, I'm waiting for your father to come home. And that was bad news, by the way. We used to approach our father like our salvation, with fear and trembling, because he was tough. But I'm glad that he was tough, because we are the men we are today because of that discipline. My lowest moment, which also happens to be my biggest inspiration, when I was a little boy, I think I was in Form 2, and my mother used to sell second-hand clothes. She used to import clothes from Germany but picks them in Gikomba to go and sell. And I would sit with her at her vending corner to help her sell. But of course I would bury myself in books because I grew up being taught that, education is the key to success. Matters little if they have changed the locks, but it's still the key to success. So while I was there, the city council askari would pass by every single day to collect the levy that they paid, 50 shillings. And my mother would pay every single time. But on this particular day, I remember it was in April 2004, the guy came, as usual, and he asked for the 50 shillings. And my mother said, I haven't sold anything today. Just walk around, come back later. I'm going to pay you. And the man said, no, these are stories that we are used to mezoea. So you have to pay the money and you have to pay it now. My mother said, just go come back later. And the guy was not listening. He had no heart. I think there was an ice box where his heart used to be. He decided to do what they do, pick their clothes, stack them in a sack, and take them to City Hall, where you would then have to go and pay a lot of money to get it out of. And at this point, my mother was literally begging him and telling him, just do it for my boy. If not for me, just do it. I know you are a father, just do it for my boy. But he was having none of it. And at that point, I saw tears roll down my mother's cheeks. And I could not stand it. I think if there's something that is life-altering, is for a son to see his mother cry tears of shame. And I looked around, I saw a slasher. I picked it up. And I looked at this big man. He was as tall as Dawn, just bigger, and with a beard. And I told him, sir, I don't mean any disrespect, but if you don't put those clothes down, I will dismember your leg from the rest of your body. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but in me, it was a typical case of David versus Goliath, because I was tiny, not much has changed, but he was a big man. And he took off. And there was my mother and I. And she looked at me. I can only imagine what was going on in her mind. She was thinking, wow, what happened to my son? He must have picked that from his father's side. But I went to her and I held her hands. And I told her, Mama, when I grow up, I will work so hard that you'll never have to beg any man for your livelihood. That's why whatever venture I go into, whatever space I go into, I always emerge the top. Why? Because I made a promise to my mother. It was my lowest point, but it was also my highest. because from then I draw my inspiration to do what I do. I focus on personal development first because I believe everyone can be better than they are. They can be better tomorrow than they are today. And if that was not so, what then do you need tomorrow for? We all have potential to grow beyond what we are right now. And I think my journey started maybe while I was still in campus. When I got a job, I was given a job by Safaricom while I was still in campus. And it's because of my ability to express myself. I stood at a forum, I spoke, they thought, wow, that boy is brilliant. You should hire him. And they hired me. And then I think they mistook my ability to communicate well as my ability to sell. So they took me to sales. But I learned a lot of things in sales. That's where my career started. Safaricom was my first employer. And while I was there, I used to find that I'm very passionate about talking to people. As in, I can literally just pay people to listen to me. That's how much I love talking to people. And while I was there, I realized I talk a lot. I talk to people, I start meetings, I take initiative. And I decided to start developing this gift that I believe I have, the gift to communicate. So as part of my journey, that's where I started. And after a while, I left and entered the big world out here. And I have been able to grow from strength to strength as far as my gift is concerned. I believe I'm a firm believer of gifts. And I think your gift can take you to so many places that you've never even imagined. If only we could take time to first identify our gifts and then develop them. They will take you to places that even your imagination was limited. A man should be a symbol of two things. One, providence. Two, protection. And I believe that's what is not a beard. Protection, providence. Providence to your family, to start with. If you call yourself a man, you must be in a position to provide for your family. Two, protection. Protect those who are vulnerable, especially those close to you. Charity begins at home. Protect those close to you, be it your children, be it your wife, be it your brothers and sisters. That to me is what a man should be. One, provider. Two, protector. You see, there are these dreams, nightmares you usually have when you eat too much in the evening, that there's a snake running after you but you can't run. That's what it feels like to be a man right now, especially younger men. There's so much pressure from, it's not even social media, it's just the society. At a particular age, you're expected to be in a particular place. Then there's this whole life that happens on social media. Other people think other people are doing better than you are, especially for the like of my career, because we are usually in different places at different times. Somebody thinks, wow, you're so far ahead of somebody else who is probably at your age. But the truth is, that is social media life. In real life, life is hard, especially for the man, because of that pressure. And more so the pressure we put on ourselves. Because you find that it's not the pressure that others bring. It's when we put on ourselves. You think at a particular age I should be. We have this fixed picture that at a particular age we should be doing particular things with particular people at particular places. But then you realize life has its own timeline. It happens when it wants. And there are so many people you can see, even there's depression and mental disorders because people are putting too much pressure on themselves, especially men. There's a very high suicide rate among the men. Why? We don't speak out because speaking out seems like a sign of weakness. Asking for help seems like weakness, but the truth is it's the strong ones who ask for help. So I think there's too much pressure on the boy child right now. And the system is not supporting him as much as it should. There has been this emphasis on girl child, but the boy child has been a bit forgotten. And again, we can also blame ourselves. For one reason, men don't take too much emphasis on empowering themselves. It's women who actually go out and really empower themselves. So I think the combined factors of the external forces and our own laxity has led a man to be in a very precarious situation where we feel there's so much pressure on us to deliver and we are not delivering. Yeah, so that I think that's how I feel about being a man this time and in this city especially. True friendship for me is loyalty. And by loyalty I mean somebody who will stand by you whether you're right or wrong, at least in public. But when behind closed doors they will tell you what is truth. And I am privileged to have a few friends who I can call loyal friends, people I can call at 3 a.m. and they pick their calls. Okay, I haven't tried yet, but I believe those guys would pick their calls. And if you have friends are the families we choose. It's God's way of apologizing for bad relatives sometimes. I'm not saying I have bad relatives, but these are some friends stick closer than even your own family. And I treasure my friends. And I come through for my friends. Whenever they need me, I come through for them because I know at some point I also need them to come through for me. I have written 3 books. The first one was called What Makes You Special? A Guide to Personal Branding. The second one was The Shallow End, Best Swimmers Aren't Found Here. And my last publication was The Realities of the 21st Century, How to Grow and Succeed in a World that is Ever Changing. The next thing for me is going world class. From what I do, I think I've been a local hero long enough. I honestly think I have done what I could do in this local market, in the speaking industry. And I feel it's about time now I go beyond being a local hero. I intend to be world class. It's my aspiration to be world class because only then can I have bigger impact beyond just the local hero. My key thing that keeps me going is impact. The responses I get from people who I will never meet because they heard me somewhere or read my article of my book somewhere and they give me such good feedback about how they feel the impact I've had in their lives. I want that to happen to so many people, to billions of people, and that's my next thing.